Should I be the one? Should I be the one presenting, or do you want to present? How is that supposed to work? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Can you present yourself?
Okay, let me
We
do
can
that.
hear you.
Let's see. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen now. Someone just can confirm quickly. Sorry.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so my name is Craig Parker. I'm from the WITS RHI Climate and Health Directorate. And today I just want to give you a very quick overview of the Heat Center. So yeah, as you can see on the screen, this is a transdisciplinary center, and we're looking at the intersection of climate change and health within an African context, and applying various data science solutions and analysis techniques to get there. So very briefly, I just want to touch on the different partners, since this is a transdisciplinary project. So CSAG is the UCT University of Cape Town partner. They're a climate science group. Then we've also got SAISHA, which is a Zimbabwean public health research organization. Prof. Stanley Luchters is one of the PIs on the project. He's from there. Then UPGC is our West African partner. They're from Cote d'Ivoire. University of Washington as well. And then we're also partnering with IBM Research. So they're fantastic in terms of adding to our machine learning, foundational models, all kinds of interesting machine learning techniques that they bring to the table. And then there's the organization that I'm from, which is WITS RHI. We're steeped in a history of a lot of HIV, TB research, epidemiology. And Prof. Matthew Churchich is the PI on this project. He comes from WITS RHI too. And then just finally, University of Michigan, who's assisting with our analyses in many ways. So at the highest level, what is the Heat Center all about? So essentially, we're trying to prepare a data science ecosystem and platform. And in order to do this, we're bringing in a whole diverse set of environmental data. So a lot of it is the remote sensing data, satellite imagery derived, temperature, humidity, pollution, everything you can think of from a climate perspective. And then we're putting a whole lot of longitudinal biomedical data sets into this database as well, into this overall repo. And then it says other data. So that's open, but at the moment, that's mostly socioeconomic data that we've included into this data science ecosystem and platform. So that's the first objective. The second is really around the purpose, and we're really doing this work to inform climate change and health interventions. So we're looking to do these analyses in order to, for example, develop an early warning system. Or yeah, so it's all about applying data science in order to come up with ideas that can, if there's a heat wave, for example, can really help people on the ground. The third is all about capacity building. So this is an amazing opportunity for people working in this unit like myself, because what we get to do is we get to deepen domain expertise. So I'm coming from, for example, a public health background, and working in this project, I get exposed to climate science. I get exposed to machine learning and data science and deepen those skills, computer science, behavioral science. So yeah, a big objective of the project is really to develop capacity and really bring together the next generation of researchers in climate and health. And then finally, we don't want this just to be a project that ends with us and just stays within these partners. We want it to become a center of excellence and really develop the next set of research generation across the African continent with regards to climate and health research. So let me then go to the next slide. Okay, so this is our overall methodological framework, as well as a bit of a summary of where we are at the moment. So that first step cannot be underestimated. So that's acquisition of biomedical data. Really, really tough. So we're trying to approach PIs for health data sets across Africa. And so far, we've managed to secure 20 databases. and we've got 34 that we're currently in progress in terms of signing data transfer agreements. But yeah, really don't underestimate that first step. I think it's one of the hardest steps in the whole project. I'm sure many other people can relate to that as well. If I then take you onto the right-hand side of this graphic, we've done very well in terms of getting the geocoded climate data. It was all available already from some of the groups that we're working with, but we've really brought that in nicely into our overall database, and as well as some really nice socioeconomic data. And we're actually in the stages now of doing vulnerability mapping in Johannesburg. So we're trying to overlay socioeconomic data with a lot of the heat data, with a lot of the we're beginning to integrate now some of the health data as well. And it's very interesting to see where the highest risk is when you layer those layers on spatially together. So yeah, just to kind of very quickly touch on the other pieces. So we're merging the different data types. We're going into data science and the analysis piece late 2023. So we're about to move into that stage. And as I said before, this is all about developing public health solutions and knowledge dissemination. On the left-hand side, I won't go through all of that, but those are the cross-cutting activities which we've, really done well in terms of collaboration on. And finally, final slide, just to show you that this is the interface. So this is our Jupyter Lab interface, and we've got all kinds of data sets that you can access and do analysis on. That's it from my end. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. So we can proceed to ask any questions that we have. So I'll open the floor. Anybody?
So thank you. For most of the data that you have, I was just wondering, because I've been in a project like this before, but not back home, so to say. Did you collect it from public institutions, or you collected them yourselves, or you did both, or how did you get your data?
Yeah, good question, John. So so from the health side, which is what I'm primarily involved in, the process we're going through is we're approaching PIs of previous studies. So we are approaching them with regards to clinical trials, any kind of study that involves longitudinal health data over the last 20 years. So it needs to have, high quality data over time.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we're going through this process. It's not really public. It's more like we reach out to a primary investigator or a network.
Okay, which goes to my next question. Sorry, I need to cut it short. So so this type of data are usually very proprietary, or so to say, you need to go through a lot of signing or some sorts. Did you do that, or was it a seamless scenario? I just want to know how it went for you. How was the experience?
Yeah, no. So far, it's been super tricky. So it really helps that the NIH has got this new policy in terms of data sharing. But even with that sharing policy, people will say, yes, we'll share, but they're so busy, and so then it becomes ongoing, like reminders, and also takes time to pull together the data. So you need somebody to actually do it. So so far, it's very, very tricky, in short.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to add that one of our presenters could not make it, so we do have more time, so we can continue on to engage.
Okay, let me ask about the remote sensing then. Which satellite? Okay, like I said, I've been lucky to be around this type of project before, but mainly agriculture and climate, not with health. So which satellite did you use? Which satellites are you using to get your data from? I mean, I'm sure there are specific satellites that covers areas in Africa, and some are overlapping, but some are not overlapping, which leaves a gap. So which one do you have? I mean, when I saw your land surface scenario.
So we're using Copernicus. We're using a lot of the NASA-based derived data sets.
Okay.
Yeah,
from
using,
ArcGIS, or because ArcGIS, the proprietary ArcGIS also used to have some data sets
yeah,
repository.
so it's quite nice because you can go through like things like Google Earth Engine or ArcGIS or QGIS.
Okay.
But what's quite nice is that on this Jupyter Lab, you can see on the screen here,
Yeah.
all those data sets are already built in. So I could actually go into that climate file and we find out Landsat and MODIS and all the different types of data sets that are in there. But yeah, it's very nice because those of you familiar with Python and Jupyter Lab, you know, you can now start just interfacing with it directly on the right-hand side there and get some very nice images. Maybe not as good as QGIS and ArcGIS, but definitely gives you a good start.
I mean, if it is Landsat, it will be good. Landsat is a very well-known set of data sets, so it will be good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
More questions for Dr. Parker?
Maybe I can go on asking. So your project is going to end. So because it's like I'm sure you were rushing, maybe because you thought there is time limit. So your project is ending when? Are you open for collaboration? Are you open for insights, people that want to do some bit of research with you? What are you open for?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a opportunity each year where...
Okay, so let me give you the background of what I'm asking. Yeah. Presently, we are in a stage where I'm in a consortium, really. I'm a convener of a consortium of the Horizon Europe project. And some of the things we are doing is with respect to health and climate. And you have things that will make us to be good, so to say.
No, so I mean, I guess this, you know, this goes back to the nature of what we're trying to do here. So we're trying to build ongoing relationships, and we want to create this this database which can be used by, you know, anybody, or not anybody, but through a rigorous process of application, but through any researchers with you know, the right the right questions and just the right research.
Yes,
we'd love to collaborate. And Matthew, our PI, I mean, he's always talking about, you know, can we partner with somebody else here? Can we partner with? And even when we're getting our data sets that we're feeding into this, he's always saying, like, look, can we? Do you guys want to be part of the analysis? Do you want to write some of this up with us? So yeah, we're totally open to any opportunities like that.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. There's a comment in the chat. I will just read it, and then if you quickly respond to that, we'll move on to Dr. Abubakar. Retrospective data is known to depend on the quality checks put in place by the primary data collector. How do you find the quality of the data you have received so far, and does all variables fit with the project aims and objectives? Yeah,
that's a very good question. So, okay, so in terms of the quality, I think that's why we've gone after, try to keep it as close as many clinical trials as possible, because within those clinical trials, there is a high level of quality in terms of the data sets that we're bringing in. So I think that touches on kind of, it's all at a reasonably high level. But then the other part of the question is now, you know, all these different studies are measuring different things, right? So the tricky part is developing a code book and a process, a harmonization process, where we're pulling out the variables in a way that they can all be analyzed against each other. So there's been a lot of work. We've actually started to use some large language models, and we've done some work with Alwazi just around mapping ontologies. So there's been a lot of work around that, which I think if we get that right is also something that we could share with other projects that that could be useful for the harmonization process. But maybe just on the actual data sets. So the data sets, when they were collected, were prospective data sets, right? So they were collecting data over time. But now that we're looking back and collecting them, that's what I mean, that they're kind of, it's in the past that we're getting those data sets. So it's not any data that's still being collected.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Abubakar, we're on to you.
Thank you very much. Maybe I could share the screen. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Is it in a presenter mode?
No, it's not in the presentation mode, no. Okay, yes.
No, it is. So I would like to briefly introduce UZIMA, which stands for Utilizing Health Information for Meaningful Impact in East Africa through Data Science. And it's co-led by I and Akbar Walji. And we have 4 collaborating institutions: Cambridge Wellcome Trust, Aga Khan University, University of Michigan, and Delhus. So the key aim for UZIMA is really to look at ways in which to create a scalable and sustainable platform where we can use AI and machine learning methodologies to really develop predictive models that can form early warning signs to address 2 critical areas of health: maternal, newborn, and child health, and mental health. And really what we set out to do is to fill 3 critical gaps: harmonization of multimodal data sets. So for instance, we do have data sets where data has been collected in public hospital, and some of it has been collected as research data, and some of it has been collected in public health facilities. What's the best way to be able to really look at all these data sets and harmonize them so that we can have more in-depth information from the data sets? We would also like to leverage on temporal patterns of data so that we can really identify and be able to develop powerful predictive models. And lastly, for us, really be able to engage key stakeholders to be able to identify ways to disseminate and sustain some of these models in target communities. In fact, in our second networking round, we'll have some of the presentations around dissemination and sustainability, how we are engaging key stakeholders. So within the hub, we have 5 core areas. We have the admin core, which just does the day-to-day coordination. We have this dissemination sustainability core, which is really around how do we ensure the work we've done has impact. And you can see that in that core, we have government as partners, we have NGOs as partners, we have, a school on business to really learn around sustainability. We have a data management and analysis core, which is really around how do we handle the data? How do we build infrastructure for the hub? And then the 2 research cores, maternal, newborn, and child health, and the mental health cores. So I will just talk around each of these cores and some of the successes we have achieved so far. So in terms of the mental health core, we have 3 key sub-study. One of the sub-studies is really leveraging on technology by use of wearable Fitbits among healthcare workers to look at, it will collect data over a year. And we want to look at some of the clinically relevant mobile signatures of depression and mood. The study has been piloted. We were able to work with around 50 healthcare workers to be able to check if it's feasible, acceptable, and if we get high quality data, we were able to to deal with any challenges which were minor. And now we have set out the study and we have recruited more than 500 healthcare workers, and recruitment is still ongoing. The data is streaming onto our digital platform, I will talk a little bit more about our data platform. And yeah, I think at this moment we can confidently say we are able to collect a lot of mental health data using wearables, as people seem to be able to accept them. It seems feasible, and the initial quality checks indicate we are collecting high quality data. We also have a second sub-study that really wants to identify the risk of depression and suicide ideation among adolescents and young adults using existing longitudinal surveillance data. So this took a little, okay, so it started in year 2, so already we didn't start this at the start of the study. And then the ethics of accessing some of the retrospective data and being able to go back to families and collect more data took a little bit long to sort out, but now we have been able to get all the ethical approval, and more new data collection is set out for this cohort of around 9,000 children who we have data for since they were young, and now we want to see them when they are adolescents and young adults. And the third study is really setting up a robust longitudinal mental health data set among young Kenyans. It will build on the World Mental Health International College Student Initiative. By the time we set up Uzima, we already had a cohort. One of our colleagues had already worked with this cohort, and therefore we were able to get some of the initial data, but now we are setting up in 5 new universities to collect a lot more data on mental health. So you can see quite a bit of the data is building up on some existing data, but given how thin mental health data is in Africa, we are doing a lot of more data collection also. The next study is maternal, newborn, and child health core. And here again, we have 3 sub-studies. One wants to look at prediction of models for poor pregnancy outcomes using longitudinal surveillance data sets. Again, we've already accessed data from a private hospital, more than 13 data points, and have started analyzing, looking at some of the associations. We do hope that we will be able, we are just about to access, we are going through material transfer agreements and very many other agreements about data sharing, so that we can also access data from public hospital and data from research studies. And we anticipate that at the end, we would have quite a large database we can use to look at poor pregnancy outcomes. The next aim is to look at models on NCDs, specifically looking at a data set that has more than 70,000 pregnancies and be able to follow up the mothers 10 to 15 years later to look at how some of their pregnancy outcomes may be predictors of future NCDs, specifically focusing on diabetes and hypertension, but also now there is a growing interest on cardiovascular diseases. And lastly is also a follow-up of a cohort of children who were seen when they were 0 to 6, and we do have some other household data because they are nested within a household survey, and we would like again to follow them up when they're now adolescents and school-going children, to just be able to develop models of very early predictors and indicators of poor outcomes. Now, one of the key things about prediction models is there's always been a criticism that people may not use some of these models. So one of the things we really set out to do is to be able to bridge the gap between prediction, when we develop the prediction models being adopted, and dissemination, by really doing a very systematic community engagement strategies and working with various key stakeholders to be able to find pathway for sustainability. Some of the key stakeholders we're engaging are people in media, we're engaging policymakers, we're doing community awareness for some of the very early results we have, but also we have set up very active community advisory boards that really look at some of the work we are doing and help us identify priorities. So a good example here is, for instance, in writing Uzima, our key focus was on suicidal ideation, depression, and anxiety. But when we went to Kilifi, one of our focus communities, they're very keen on psychosis, and especially the very early signs of psychosis. So we've actually included psychosis as part of our work as a response to some of the concerns and areas of interest to the community. We have the data management and analysis core. For the past 2 years, they have really worked very hard towards setting up a data platform where we can share the data, where data can stream in, where data can be managed and analyzed. And in the long run, we hope we can set it up in such a way that the data can be found by others and they can use it. So within, they've also worked towards capacity building, ensuring that there are several students within the Kenyan context who are being capacity built around data science analytic approaches. So that's a brief introduction to Uzima and some of the work we've been able to do so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Amina. Do we have any questions? Comments, questions, and again, you're free to use the chat. Dr. Parker?
Thanks, Amina. That's a nice summary. I'm wondering, do you have any concerns around sample size of your data sets and being able to apply the machine learning algorithms? And do you have ways in which you're working around that, or are you sticking only to certain machine learning algorithms, for example, like neural nets? Do you have enough data to do that? It's also something we're dealing with in our project.
Amina, you're muted.
Now, I was saying I didn't get Craig's question very clearly. My internet dropped briefly. Could you please repeat?
Sure thing, Amina. Yeah, so I'm just asking about sample. So the size of your data sets, do they allow for the type of machine learning and especially like deep neural net analysis that I'm sure you'd like to apply? It's something that we're also
Yes,
thinking
for
about.
some of the data sets are very large. We have some maternal data sets with 35,000 plus pregnancies. Some might be smaller. So I think the methodology we will use will really depend on the size of the data sets, but also when we have more incidences. So for more longitude, where there'll be more data points, I think it reduces the sample size needed. But yeah, maybe the short answer is for some of our databases, we do have very large sample sizes.
And Amina, there's a question in the chat from Emmanuel Abuya. He says, where have you been getting the health facility data from? Is it directly from the health facility or from National Health Management Systems? And so you want to take that? He has a follow-up.
Yes, so in terms of the health facility data, one of the data sets come from the Aga Khan Health Services. So that is a private set of clinics, almost hospitals, so several within East Africa, sorry. And then the other one comes from a public hospital, but it was really a pregnancy cohort that had been set up. So we've not yet used the National Health Management data so far. Part of it is they may not really have a lot around the kind of outcomes we want, but also as you raise the issue of quality. So we have faced the issue of quality, and really it's been some of the key lessons around how do you address it and how do you, go around dealing with missing data where some of it is missing.
Any more questions? We still do, we have some time. I mean, I'll go ahead and what are you looking for in a future partner for in a partner for future work?
So what we are looking for are people who may also have similar data sets and would like to be able to work with us closely in analyzing the data sets or maybe, working with us. So I think that would be really one of the key things we would want to find in a future partner.
Okay, thank you. There's another question in the chat.
What is the level of missingness? I don't know if James Orwa is still here because he's the fellow dealing with this specific data set. James, if you're here, are you able to respond to that? So that I don't, thank you.
Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So initially, the data that we got was declared in paperwork and then running the entry into the electronic system. And we were seeing quite a bit of missing in some of the few variables. But now we are transitioned to electronic system, and we hope that is validated enough and the level of missing will go down. So there's no much data missing going forward.
Okay.
Yes, just a follow-up question to that.
Please go ahead.
Sorry, I have to come in. I would like to know whether you are not collecting any retrospective data. Sorry, I'm more inclined to the data part because I am a statistician. Because he said that the level of missingness, they're not expecting it to go down. So I don't know whether they're not analyzing any retrospective.
I said that initially the data we have was done in paper and then entered into the electronic system. And there we observed quite a missing, which could be due to entry into the electronic system. But now moving forward, we have transitioned everything into electronic system. Our data is captured real time, so we don't expect much missing moving forward. But the one that we had, there are quite some missing data. And then what we have done with the missing data, we have explored all the variables missing. And then the ones that can be imputed, we'll impute. But the ones that we can't impute, anything above 5% missing will be excluded as a predictor in the modeling stage.
Thanks, James. I hope that's clear, Emmanuel. I think what is clear for our hub, we are using both retrospective and we are also collecting new data. But also one of the key things our hub is also to, part of our dissemination is strengthening the health systems. So from the learnings of the initial analysis of the data, we are actually advising the people we've worked with, for instance, within the Aga Khan Hospital, and we hope that will enhance the quality of the data they collect and, kind of have some lessons. In fact, we've recently discussed and we hope to get ethical approval for an amendment where we actually go for qualitative studies, sub-studies, so that we understand some of the reasons for the missingness and how really to strengthen the data collection processes, which really aligns to our fifth core of the study. How best to, disseminate and ensure the results are utilized within the health system. Thanks, great. So we are really at the very early stages. I can't honestly say there are interventions that have emerged. We do hope that by the end of year 3, when we've looked at the data in more details, that may be clear. But clearly there are some areas that of interest coming out. For instance, just one key one is how do we ensure that the quality of data being collected within our health systems is good. Of course, there is a lot of interest around health, mental health interventions. And one of that is just how do we collect high quality mental health data that can be used for real-time decision making. But I can't say there's any concrete intervention yet, but those are some of the areas. I think the key area of intervention for us would be, how do we use data for health decision making, and how do we ensure data is in a form that is ready to use and can inform decision making very quickly, at real time if possible.
So, Amina, and then to Craig, is there anything else you'd like to add? You'd like people to know about future work, what directions you're going in, and opportunities for partnerships?
Nothing specifically, I would say, but I would just say for those who are here, if anyone is interested in those two core areas and sees opportunity for collaboration, feel free to write to us and we are open to discussions.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so I think from my side, maybe I can just touch on, we've also started doing this vulnerability mapping. So we've got RP1 and RP2, which are the two separate research projects within the Heat Center. And the second one, which is based in Johannesburg and in Abidjan. In these settings, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build essentially spatial maps, which put the different layers of socioeconomic deprivation. And then we're looking particularly at heat exposure, because heat exposure, there's all kinds of biological mechanisms, especially in maternal and child health, which are at play when there's a heat wave or anything like that. And so we're trying to layer on the climate data and the heat, the socioeconomic, and now if we can get high quality data, well, we already have some, but as I said, the data acquisition process is not easy. But as we get more and more data sets, we want to start putting that all together. So spatially, we can start to see within Abidjan and within Johannesburg, some of the high risk areas. And then the idea that emerges from that is that you should be able to create an early warning system. So say you're living in, I don't know, some of you probably know South Africa, some of you don't, but in Johannesburg, there's socioeconomic inequality in a very large way. So there's a township called Alexandra next to a very wealthy area called Sandton. And so what we're seeing in our spatial mapping is that all of these factors, including the heat, this urban heat island effect, it all builds up within those areas of lower socioeconomic circumstances. And so, yeah, I think what that then does is shows you, if you are going to target interventions around early warning systems, you need to take into account the health risk factors, but also the socioeconomic. And then how do you work with policymakers, or how do you even create like a little application that you can download on your phone, which helps to say, like, look, it's getting really hot if you're pregnant, or you've got, if you've got high blood pressure, whatever the risk factors might be, then you need to get to, a public health facility quickly. And then we're working with the public health facilities to try and get them used to the idea that with climate changing, we need to start really thinking about, from a health perspective, what this means for people living in, let's say, informal settlements where, you're living under like a tin roof and it's 45 degrees outside. I mean, it has some serious implications on health. But yeah, that's just kind of what I would have said if I thought I had more time. But yeah, in terms of collaboration, as I said, we're very open to, especially as Amina said, if we can work with you and get some data sets, that's fantastic. But even over and above that, we're very open to people that have interest in this space.
Okay, if you can both drop put your contacts in the chat, so people who would like to get in touch with you can have access to you, that'd be great. And thank you for the presentation, and thank you for participating. So I think we can go back to the main session unless somebody has anything else to say. We have about 4 minutes. Okay, then we can all go back to the main session. Thank you.